Hi, I'm Jim Litten, and that's me in the front row at Phil Black's jazz class at Broadway Dance Center. I've been taking class with Phil for over 25 years. I came to New York right out of high school and studied at ABT, but once I started taking class with Phil and learned all the wonderful styles and techniques he perfected, I was hooked on American jazz dancing. I've danced in over 10 Broadway shows and always come back to Phil to study, whether it's tap or jazz. Phil has been the best teacher for theater dance Broadway has ever had. We're both members of Dancers Over 40, and we're both still dancing. I guess when I came to New York, you were probably about my age now, I think. I think you were in your early 40s then. I have studied with a few other teachers, but I've always come back to Phil because I just want to say before we talk about you and with you for a minute that one of the things that kept bringing me back to you was the fact that there's a fad going around now that's called theater dance. It's not a fad, but it's a fact that's in the studios now, and it's something that you have done, Phil, from the very beginning, from the first class that I took from you, and which is for your students that you make sure that they're well-rounded in all the different styles of dance, and not just jazz, but even in your tap. You teach different types of tap, too. But primarily for me, it was your jazz classes where you taught Latin, Afro-Cuban, old jazz, 40s, jitterbug. You taught us the things that we needed to know to go out and get work from choreographers who were looking for different types of dancers. And really, that's one of the biggest gifts you've ever given to me, besides your Christmas gift. But for the most part, that's something that I think is really quite spectacular for the fact that you had the foresight to do that before it was even considered something that was needed. That was just your primary way of teaching. Tell us, is that the way you were taught, or is that your own design, or what is that?
Just a part of it I was taught some of that, but the other part was that I did many, I worked mostly in nightclubs, and in one club on Broadway, I did 64 different numbers. So you can imagine how many, that was 4.5 years. You can imagine the styles we had to keep changing all the time, and people would be always having trouble with the new style. So I said, it's not a new style, it's just stuff that's on Broadway or in the television or in a movie. You want to have a basic idea of what it's all about, or you can't sell. So I used to go to all the shows just to see the style of the choreographer. They always use, everyone has a natural set of steps or things that they stick to. It's their primary
kind of their signature.
Signature, that's it. Fozzie had his, Michael Bennett had his. You name anyone, and especially with the tricky things, you know, you want to give them an edge, so you teach it to your pupil, to your students, you know. So when they go to audition, that happened to me. In this particular place I worked, they just happened to do the style that I could handle better than anybody, anybody I should say, and I excelled on that, and I got the job. When I see people that call theater dance, I say, I've been doing that my whole life. That's what I do. When they come up and ask me, well, what is jazz? I said, it's just what I say. It's all the same, you know. They say, well, what kind of music is that? But now they're bringing it in, because there's swing and there's salsa. They changed the name to salsa, but it's really a mambo, you know. It's the same dance. The swing is I've been teaching that all the years I've been teaching. And the results are there. I created a system to help them get there faster.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have the technique to the dance, you know. The real master of that was Jack Cole. That's the man.
Right.
And that's where we got our work from, you know, and everybody moved along with it. And I just took everything that I saw in the shows and added the technique so that the people had to learn the basics. You know, you can just dance, but you're not sure yourself. You're copying from somebody all the time. When you get to the point where you're leading and not copying.
Right,
Especially if
right.
you're going to choreograph.
And you own it. Yeah.
You want to own your own signature, like you say. Like I started in, my first job was in Brooklyn, in the town and country, with Judy Garland. That's where she got fired. Jerry Lewis, Vic Damone, Tony Bennett. It was a very big 2,000 seats, 14 shows a week, limousines pulling up there, packed houses. And then they ran into a rut after a couple of years, and I came up to Broadway, right on 52nd Street here on Broadway, as a dancer, the lead dancer. Soon as I was there for about a year, they wanted to cut a little bit. They said, but he'd sing, so let him do both jobs. And I was a dance captain, and little by little, I ended up the choreographer there. And we had the same kind of people. And we had lines, the dance lines, boys and girls.
Right.
And we were doing original shows all the time. His name was Boots McKenna.
Oh, really?
And he worked for the Schuberts. And we all did original stuff. So I would help with the choreography at the beginning, you know. He was amazed of the jazz I was doing. He was doing the one-finger jazz, and I was doing what I felt the pure jazz, the Jack Cole, you know. And so that's how he let me work my way up into and that's where I landed for 4.5 years.
Well, let's see. You're going to be going off here to teach another class here, I think, pretty soon. I'm at this point, you know, when I'm looking to dance. I mean, I do perform with Dancers Over 40 once in a while. I've done a few of their concerts in the last few years. And I'm still trying to be a performer, although, you know, it's the 20s and 30s that they're knocking down your doors, and it's the 40s when they're kind of, you know, not answering their phones sometimes. But so we do other things to compensate for that. You know that I work as a stagehand. I work in the movies. I work as a gaffer at times, and I also build computers, and I work in that industry too to supplement myself when I can't perform. I still take class a lot from you and from a few other people, and you are still teaching. You're also still choreographing. You're doing a nightclub act as we speak, are you not?
Yes,
With Carlton?
No, I'm directing and choreographing Carlton.
Yeah.
Just keep my hand in it.
So I guess at this point we're both still here, and I'm here because, you know, you've given me so much, given me enough to where it's made it possible for me to stay here, which isn't always true for a lot of people that come to New York. You know, it's another thing too. I don't know how kids do it today. It used to be when I got here, you know, there were 3 or 4 of us could rent an apartment, and we could afford it between the 3 of us with part-time jobs and be able to have money still for our classes and stuff. When classes like yours were about $2.50 a piece, and they stayed that way for a lot of years.
So 2 hours.
And I understand that, you know, of course the price of everything has gone up in the last 25 years too, but it's unfortunate that I think that because the dancers probably do need to be diligent in their studies more so than singers and actors do. You know, they need daily classes, they need 2 or 3 classes a day depending on where they are in their training, and this costs them a lot of money, plus their rent, plus their food, plus all of that. So to me, they've always been the poorest of the poor in the arts. Because they have to put out so much more money than the other people do.
I used to really carry people.
You know, you always have. You carried me for years. When I couldn't afford classes, you'd let me come in there and take for nothing. Just clean the studio.
Money you can always make, but time is lost. You can't make up time. So keep going, studying, and when you'll pay me, when, you know, and everybody. I had to go through a few people, but generally speaking, everybody was thankful for that, and it worked for them, you know.